Hello, good evening. Welcome to Business Live. Coming up in this edition, International Monetary Fund Board set to consider Ghana's program next week after securing financing assurance under G20 Common Framework. We will bring you some analysis. And government to pull out of 5 local banks recapitalized through Ghana Amalgamated Trust next year as the banks report of taking over those banks.
We operated on the private equity model, but analyze the situation for each bank on a standalone basis, because each company, each bank is a little different. And we worked with a team. It wasn't just the GATT board or the GATT secretariat, but worked with a team of advisors in order to do this.
We've got details of these and many others lined up for you. Please stay. Pleasure you could join us. I am Pious Baka. Straight to our very first story, which of course is a big story we are following up. And Managing Director of the IMF, Kristalina Georgieva, has indicated that the financing assurance secured under the G20 Common Framework should help the IMF Executive Board consider the fund support for Ghana. Now, this was captured in a statement by the Managing Director of the IMF after the Creditor Committee under the G20 Common Framework jointly issued a statement this afternoon to announce the extension of financing assurance to Ghana. And let me read some excerpts of the statement for you. And it reads, I welcome the statement from the official creditor of Ghana on the importance of an IMF-supported program, together with its commitment to negotiate debt restructuring terms accordingly. This statement provides the necessary financing assurances for the IMF Executive Board to consider the proposed fund-supported program and unlock much-needed financing from Ghana's development partners. It goes on to say that I also strongly endorse the call by the Official Creditor Committee for private creditors and other official bilateral creditors to commit to comparable debt treatment. The statement also continues and it reads, the Creditor Committee's action recognizes the Ghanaian Authority's strong reform program, which aims to restore macroeconomic stability and debt sustainability while laying the foundation for an inclusive recovery. It goes on to read, it also signals that further progress is being made under the G20 Common Framework, demonstrating that international partners are ready to work together to help countries resolve their debt issues. This is vital to enable countries such as Ghana achieve sustainable growth and poverty reduction. So that's a statement coming in from the Managing Director of the IMF, Kristalina Georgieva. My colleague George Yafi joins me in studio to break it all down for us. George, so this is a statement coming in from the IMF board herself. Now, tell us, what does this really mean, basically?
So what it means first is that Ghana has met all the requirements that now the board can consider our program. And just like what we reported last week, it is likely that the board could look at Ghana's program on the 17th of May. That is next week in terms of Ghana's program. Also, the IMF MD talked about the fact that this would also let development partners also come on board. So this whole talk about financing arrangement means that, one, these bilateral partners could cancel the debts that you owe them or commit fresh funding into this program. So you have a situation where you're going to get our development partners coming with some fresh funding. Now, we shouldn't forget that this 3 billion that is coming in is going directly to the Bank of Ghana to support Ghana's balance of payment needs.
Okay.
So, and also to help with our imports in terms of the country and also support the currency. So these monies are going to come in tranches as and when to meet certain conditions. So we are learning that if the board should approve our program for us maybe Wednesday or even Thursday, by Friday or even Saturday, the money, the first tranche, should be disbursed to the account of the Bank of Ghana.
Okay.
Now, there are other partners that are going to come on board. The World Bank is also going to advance some money to support certain projects that are identified in the budget as well. We have Germany, Sweden, they're also going to come on board. So that's what the MD was talking about when he said that this would also unlock funding from the other development partners to also come on board to support our program.
Yeah.
It is not about just the money coming in, but also the confidence that it's going to give to the investor community. And now there's a big brother on board. to check Ghana to be more fiscal discipline with its finances. And all these things could again unlock more funding into the economy.
Great. I'd want to engage the business perspective on this matter. And joining us is the Greater Accra Regional Chairman of the Association of Ghana Industries, Chonam Apelu, for his perspective on this. Grateful, Chonam, you could join us on Business Live. I would be interested to pick your reaction to this. Really, what does this mean to the business community, Chonam?
Well, thank you. Good evening to your listeners, and thank you for having me. Well, it sounds encouraging to start with, and for us in the business community, we're watching and observing the space very closely, and are hoping that in no time we'll have a decision from the IMF and have the money released to the country. So these news are essentially encouraging, and obviously there's light at the end of the tunnel, and so those will be my initial comments.
All right. So with regards to your business partners and the investments that were locked up as a result of the low confidence, are you a bit of improved confidence following this development?
Well, so confidence improve over time. So all of these activities, the relief from IMF, means that they all contribute to improving the confidence in the business space. And what will be more interesting for us is when a decision is finally made, because all of these are being done to ensure that we receive a favorable decision and the money actually trickle in. So these are really good news and good time, except that we have to wait to see the money, because as it is now, we don't have timeline. We're not sure that if the next time the board is meeting, they will necessarily make a decision. So all of this, we can only wait and pray that we have a decision and the money finally comes in. Because as it is now, it's still quite hard for the private sector.
All right. Thank you very much, Chonam Apelu, for your time here on Business Live, sharing your perspective with us there. But we've got to stay on this because it is certainly a developing story, and get a perspective as well of economist Professor Lord Mensah. Grateful, Professor Mensah, you could join me on Business Live. Now, what do you make of this financing assurance that Ghana has secured under the G20 Common Framework?
Yeah, it is a good signal. I mean, we're all hoping for it, and once the assurance has come, what is left is to commit it to paper. And we're hoping that in the next few days, we can get an MOU to that regard, so that, the IMF board can take their decision based on the MOU between Ghana and its creditors. And I'm happy that cluster of Paris Club involves China, because if you listen to the statement very well, China is part of is a co-chair of the creditor club that has been formed. And so it's a good signal. It makes negotiation easy, for Ghana. And I think it's enough information for the board of IMF to rely on that to say, okay, fine. For now, it looks like Ghana has a very good agreement with their creditors. And as a result of that, they can go ahead to, give us whatever, funds they have for us, and then the conditions that goes with it. So it is a good signal, to the investment community as well. Over the years, over the past few months, what is happening with our exchange rate and all those. So it will boost the confidence of the investment community and other, donors as well, as George has indicated, because no donor will fund, a debt-ridden country. A country that is debt-ridden, obviously, will use whatever funds that comes to them, to service their debt. So now that we have this assurance of debt restructuring, we can have, other supports coming in as well.
All right. Now, the IMF Managing Director says, based on this development, the board will move soon to consider Ghana's program. What date do you think this is likely to happen? Some are projecting May 17.
Well, depending on when the Paris Club and Ghana will commit to paper, the MOU, that will serve as evidence. What has come out is just a press statement, and we're waiting for that MOU that will commit this agreement onto paper. And so If we should give ourselves by next week, I mean, hopefully, getting to the end of the month to first week of June, we should be able to get a program with them.
All right. So, in your expectation, in terms of the expected impact of this news on the economy, what do you think that would be?
Well, it's a strong one. I mean, it will send a strong signal to the investor community. Whoever is thinking about, possibly, holding exchange rate holding dollars to think of maybe prices going up and all those, will start selling them. And in effect, will bring the exchange rate, down, or possibly stabilize the exchange rate. And so, for me, and Ghana being an import, driven economy, once our exchange rate gets stabilized, obviously fits into prices of other, goods and services that transcend in the country. So, it's a good signal. I mean, positive one.
Thank you very much, Professor Lord Mensah, for your time here on Business Live, speaking to us there. And George is still here with me in studio. So, George, between now and May 17, what are the dynamics?
I think that from what we are picking up, the dynamics are that the board is working to look at Ghana's program. I mean, again, what we are, and listen, this morning we were speculating, even the international media, about the G20 framework coming out, the statement and all the rest. Now, 2 o'clock there, or something around 1:30 there, the statement was out. 2:33, the IMF MD is out with the full statement. It tells you that a lot of things have already happened behind the scenes. What is just coming out are just the formalities and all the rest. So they are going through the document, trying to push, because when you look at the IMF schedule, the official schedule on the Wednesday being May 17, Ghana is not on that schedule.
Okay.
What we understand is that a country could be taken off and Ghana put there, or Ghana could be added as well. So it's basically working to get the documents to the board. And normally when the staff send documents about countries for program approval, hardly is it rejected.
Okay.
So the economists want to say, all other things being equal, we could have a program considered on May 17, and what could happen is that we could go ahead to get a program next week.
All right, certainly. We shall keep our eye on that and keep viewers updated as and when developments unfold. A reminder, you're still watching Business Live here on the Joy News channel with me, Pious Kojubaka. Still to come, government to pull out of 5 local banks recapitalized through Ghana Amalgamated Trust next year as it debunks reports of taking over those banks.
We operated on the private equity model, but analyze the situation for each bank on a standalone basis, because each company, each bank is a little different. And we worked with a team. It wasn't just the GATT board or the GATT secretariat, but worked with a team of advisors in order to do this.
Hello, welcome back. You're still watching Business Live with me, Pious Kojo Baka. Now, government is expected to get out of the 5 local banks recapitalized through the Ghana Amalgamated Trust in 2019 by next year. Now, there were concerns that the Finance Ministry was hiding behind the special purpose vehicle to take over the banks after injecting 8 million Ghana cedis into the operations. But speaking on PM Express Business Edition, the chief executive of the Ghana Amalgamated Trust, Eric Otu, insisted there is no plan for government takeover of the banks.
Of Ghana, again, in working with them, had done all the analysis and provided us the estimate. So for Prudential Bank, as an example, the estimate was about 250 million. Similar for UNB. And then for ADB and Omnibasic, these were in the hundreds, so about 130 million cedis. And then, of course, we had some transaction costs and some funding required to run the GATS office itself. So all of that came up to the 800 million. But to your point, each bank got the funding required by the regulator in order to be fully recapitalized so they could continue their operations.
These monies, was it done in the form of a credit or is going to be converted into an equity?
Okay. So these were all structured, again, using the private equity model as equity investments into the banks. So for each bank, and that's why I indicated, we operated on the private equity model, but analyze the situation for each bank on a standalone basis, because each company, each bank is a little different. And we worked with a team. It wasn't just the GATT board or the GATT secretariat, but worked with a team of advisors in order to do this. So a lot of the financial and tax analysis and due diligence was conducted by PwC for all the banks that we were looking at back then. And so they came up with insights into the financial health and helped us to then do our valuations and analysis that helped us then to structure the equity investments into each specific bank on a bank-by-bank basis. And these were all on commercial terms, because the funds we gave to support the banks were expected to be recouped later on with hopefully a return, so that we can then return it to the original source of funds.
And news coming in is that President Akufo-Addo is counting on next Wednesday, May 17 meeting of the board of the International Monetary Fund to finalize approval of Ghana's $3 billion bailout request. Now, China and the Paris Club today agreed to provide the debt assurances required to aid Ghana's request for a balance of payment support from the IMF. Now, the two groups in a press statement asked all private creditors and other official bilateral creditors to commit to Ghana's deal without any further delay. Now, in a reaction with the leadership of the Catholic Bishops' Conference at the Jubilee House, an elated President Akufo-Addo described the development as special, adding the move starts the recovery process of Ghana's economy. And thankfully, we've been joined by the Deputy Finance Minister, Dr. John Kuma, on Zoom for his take on it. Grateful, Dr. Kuma, you could join me on Business Live. Certainly good news to government and, of course, Ghanaians as a whole. Now, what do you make of this financing assurance that Ghana has secured under the G20 Common Framework?
Yes, thank you very much, and good evening to listeners. This is an indication that Ghana has now fulfilled all the prior actions and is ready to go to the IMF board. Of course, after the SLA, there were prior conditions that Ghana needed to meet. That included the domestic restructuring we needed to do and the external debt restructuring too. And to achieve that, we needed the financing assurances from the Paris Club and China. And the outcome today is that the Paris Club and China has agreed to form the committee. And China and France will co-chair to ensure that the financing assurances that Ghana must attain before the IMF board decision is taken is granted. So I think it's a positive development for our country.
All right. Now, the managing director of the IMF, Kristalina Georgieva, says based on this development, the board will move soon to consider Ghana's program. What date do you think this will happen? The president has stated somewhere May 17. Are we to go by that?
Yes. Once the president has indicated May 17, I believe that is the next IMF date, IMF board meeting date. We expect the IMF board to meet that date. So we all keep our fingers crossed.
Now, what assurance would you give to Ghanaians that after we've secured this deal, we shall be fiscally prudent in that regard?
Yes, of course. We must remember this is not the first time that we are going to the IMF. This is about our 17th time, and we cannot continue to have this situation perpetually. And so I strongly believe, of course, this particular instance, we know the exogenous factors like COVID-19 and the Russia-Ukraine war that mitigated or fought against the economy of Ghana and other economies as well. But in all that, we should be able to build enough buffers in the economy to be strong and stay prudent on our fiscals so that we don't return to this situation again. And then we must have a more sustainable domestic programs that will strengthen the economy to be on its own. So I believe, well, this is a difficult choice. It's a difficult situation that Ghana had to go through, but even the international community and the IMF themselves recognize that these were situations beyond the control of the country or the managers of the economy. But we strongly believe that going forward, Ghana would be in a position to be self-sustaining.
Now, I want you to tell me your expectation in terms of the expected impact of this news on the economy.
Yes, definitely this will restore confidence in the economy. I mean, many people have had their doubts. If you remember when Ghana got the SLA in December, the exchange rate depreciation ceased immediately, and we saw the CD recovering. I strongly believe that this major step of the credit committee being formed by the Paris Club and the statement on the financing assurance to the IMF will immediately restore confidence in the economy of Ghana and then also help the economy to recover as soon as possible. I strongly believe that in a very short time, we will begin to see positive development on the part of the economy.
We are grateful, Dr. John Kuma, for your time here on Business Live. He is the Deputy Finance Minister. Remember, you're still watching Business Live with me, Pious Kojo Baka, here on the Joy News channel. Let's continue with some other stories we have for you this very moment, and we shall come to you pretty soon with more on that. But we've got to take this story. The National Pensions Regulatory Authority is making a case for the passage of Actuaries Bill to provide training, registration and licensing of insurance risks and premium calculations in the country. According to the Deputy Chief Executive of the authority, David Abe, he's been speaking at a joint actuarial education program between the Actuarial Society of South Africa and that of Ghana, organized here in Accra. There is more in this report.
The launch of the joint actuarial education program between the South African Society and the Society of Ghana seeks to train more actuaries as well as build local capacity through the Ghana Insurance College. This education and training program will be jointly assessed by the college and the South African body in order to ensure that quality is not compromised. There are concerns, however, that there is little of regulation of standards of practice and professional conduct of actuaries. Speaking at the forum, Deputy Chief Executive of the NPRA, David Abe, said there is the need for a law to recognize the profession in Ghana.
Our profession gets competition from even the accountants. Yeah. The accountant team, they can do our job. The CFA is here. They have a local chapter here in Ghana, no long ago. We've been here for 25 years. We believe that we need to make sure that Parliament passes a bill where our profession will be recognized. And then they may be put on public boards. That is something that the ICA have been able to push.
Speaking on behalf of the Commissioner of Insurance at the National Insurance Commission, Head of Reinsurance and Anti-Money Laundering, Esther Amma, pledged the Commission's continuous provision of regulatory backing to ensure actuarial science flourishes.
The NIC wishes to see more organizations committing to sponsoring their staff to pursue further studies in actuarial science. The good news is that this will happen right here in Ghana.
And that's it for Business Live for today. I am Pious Kojo Baka. Always a pleasure serving you. For more news, you can get them on myjoyonline.com/business. Do enjoy the rest of our programs here on this great channel. Bye-bye.